seriously, put down your wands and let's just get real for a second, because this guy is the absolute definition of it's complicated. I mean, usually when we talk about heroes, we're thinking of guys with perfect hair and winning smiles, not a greasy, dungeon-dwelling Batman who bullied orphans for a hobby. But that's the thing, isn't it? Snape is the character that makes you want to punch him in the face and hug him at the same time. And frankly, I don't know how to process that kind of emotional whiplash. It's actually wild when you think about it. The entire Harry Potter series is basically built on the back of this one guy's ability to lie to the most powerful dark wizard of all time without sweating. Imagine having a boss who can literally read minds and you're standing there lying to his face every single day for years. That's not just skill. That's a level of stress management that I cannot even comprehend. I panic when I get a text from my landlord, and this guy was double-crossing Voldemort. But to understand why Snape is such a messy, brilliant, tragic disaster of a human being, we have to go way back. We're talking about the origin story, folks. He didn't just wake up one day deciding to be a sourpuss. He was born into it. Spinner's End. Even the name sounds depressing. It sounds like the kind of place where dreams go to die and the Wi-Fi never connects. He grew up poor, neglected, and probably seeing his parents fight all the time. That messes a kid up. I'm not making excuses for his hygiene, but when your dad is a shouting muggle and your mom is a miserable witch, you probably aren't prioritizing shampoo. You're prioritizing survival. And then, in the middle of this bleak existence, he sees a girl, Lily Evans. Now, this is where the simp allegations usually start coming in. And look, I get it. The internet loves to call Snape a simp. But I think it's deeper than that. When you have absolutely nothing, no love at home, no friends, no money, and one person shows you kindness, one person actually looks at you like you exist, that's not just a crush, that becomes your entire lifeline. Lily was the only color in his black and white world. So they become friends. He's the one who tells her she's a witch. He's the one who explains Hogwarts. In a way, he was her first guide to the magical world. That's a massive bonding experience. Imagine being the kid who holds the keys to the kingdom for the girl you like. You'd feel pretty special, right? You'd think, okay, this is it. It's me and her against the world. But then Hogwarts happens, and this is where the train wreck really starts to pick up speed. They get sorted. Lily goes to Gryffindor, the house of the brave and the popular. Snape goes to Slytherin, the house of, well, let's be honest, at that time it was basically the future Death Eaters of America club. The separation starts immediately. It's like high school cliques on steroids. And then enter the Marauders. Oh boy. I know everyone loves James Potter and Sirius Black because they're cool and rebels, but can we take off the rose-tinted glasses for a second? They were bullies, straight up. They saw a kid who was poor, weird, and liked dark arts, and they decided to make his life a living hell. Snivelous. I mean, that's just mean. I'm not saying Snape was an angel. He was definitely creepy and into some dark stuff. But James Potter hexing him just because he exists? That's toxic rich kid energy right there. It's the classic jock versus nerd dynamic with dangerous magic involved. And the worst part for Snape wasn't the bullying itself. It was that it happened in front of Lily. There is nothing, and I mean nothing, more humiliating for a teenage boy than getting pantsed or hung upside down by your ankles in front of the girl you love. That destroys your soul. It creates this ball of resentment that just grows and grows. He hated James, not just because James was a jerk, but because James had everything Snape didn't: money, popularity, confidence, and eventually Lily's attention. And then came the moment, the mudblood incident. This is the moment I want to scream at the screen every time. Snape is humiliated, dangling in the air, desperate to save face, and Lily tries to help. In his anger, in his shame, he lashes out at the only person who cared. He calls her the worst slur in the book. It's inexcusable. It's the moment he let his toxic environment win. He tried to apologize, sure, but some words you can't take back. It's like dropping a glass plate. You can say sorry to the pieces, but it's still broken. Lily walked away, and honestly, good for her. She had self-respect. But for Snape, that was the door slamming shut on his humanity. Without Lily, he had no anchor. So what did he do? He leaned into the darkness. He joined the Death Eaters. It makes sense in a twisted way. If you can't be loved, you might as well be feared. If the good guys like James Potter treat you like trash, why would you want to join them? The Death Eaters offered him power, respect, and a place where his knowledge of the dark arts was celebrated, not mocked. It was a cult, and he was the perfect recruit. But here's the irony of the century. The thing that brought him into Voldemort's inner circle was also the thing that destroyed him. The prophecy. Snape was the one who overheard Trelawney. He was the eavesdropper. He ran to Voldemort like a good little servant and spilled the beans. "Hey, boss, there's a baby coming to kill you." He thought he was being a loyal soldier. He didn't know. He didn't know it would be Lily's baby. The moment he realized Voldemort was going after the Potters, his world must have stopped. Can you imagine that panic? The realization that you just handed a death sentence to the only person you ever loved? That is a level of guilt that I don't think any therapy can fix. He goes to Dumbledore, the famous hilltop scene. This is where the character shifts from villain to gray area. He's begging, he's crying. Hide them all, then. He doesn't care about James. He doesn't even really care about the baby. He just wants Lily to live. It's selfish, yes, but it's also incredibly raw. It's a desperate man bargaining with the universe.
And he failed. Voldemort killed her. Snape walking into that destroyed house and finding her body, man, that hits different. That image of him clutching her dead body while a baby cries in the background, that is the defining trauma of his life. That is the moment Severus Snape died and the double agent was born. He made a promise to Dumbledore to protect the boy, Harry, the son of his worst enemy and the love of his life. Talk about a conflict of interest. Every time he looked at Harry, he saw Lily's eyes, but he also saw James's face. That's why he was such a jerk to Harry for 6 years. He couldn't handle it. I think people forget that Snape was a terrible teacher. Let's not gloss over that. He bullied Neville Longbottom so bad that Snape was Neville's boggart. Think about that. Neville's parents were tortured into insanity by Bellatrix Lestrange, but his biggest fear was his chemistry teacher. That says a lot about Snape's teaching methods. He was petty, vindictive, and biased. But, and this is a huge but, he kept Harry alive. He muttered the counter curse during the Quidditch match. He stood between the trio and a werewolf, Lupin, in Prisoner of Azkaban. He checked the dark corridors. He was doing the job, even if he was complaining the whole time. He was the bodyguard who hates his clients but takes the bullet anyway. Then we get to the later years. Voldemort returns. Snape has to go back. Can you imagine the guts that takes? To walk back to the Dark Lord who knows you've been at Hogwarts for years and convince him you were a spy for him all along. He had to play the role of the loyal servant perfectly. One slip-up, one thought out of place, and he's dead. Occlumency. He tried to teach Harry to close his mind. Sure, he was harsh about it, but he knew the stakes. He knew Voldemort could possess Harry. He was frustrated because Harry was too emotional, too much like James, running into danger without thinking. Snape's survival depended on discipline, and Harry was all chaos. It drove him nuts. And then, the impossible task. Dumbledore asks Snape to kill him. "You must do it, Severus." I mean, come on. Dumbledore is the only person who knows the truth, the only friend Snape has, if you can call them friends. And Dumbledore basically orders Snape to murder him to save Draco's soul. That is a heavy burden. Snape killing Dumbledore on the astronomy tower is the ultimate act of sacrifice. He knew that the moment he cast that spell, the entire world would hate him. The Order, the teachers, Harry, everyone would see him as a traitor. He accepted becoming the most hated man in the world just to follow the plan. That is some serious dedication to the mission. The year he was headmaster, a total nightmare. He had to run the school under Voldemort's regime, protect the students from the Carrows, but make it look like he was oppressing them. He had to send Harry the sword of Gryffindor without Harry knowing it was him. He sent that Patronus, the doe. That scene, the silver doe, it's iconic for a reason. It's the proof. After all this time, after all the years, after all the darkness, his Patronus was still a doe, the same as Lily's. It showed that his soul hadn't completely turned to rot. It was still anchored to her, always. That one word carries the weight of the entire series. And finally, the Shrieking Shack. Voldemort kills him, not with a duel, not with dignity, but just by slitting his throat and letting the snake eat him because he thought Snape owned the Elder Wand. It was a meaningless death in Voldemort's eyes. Snape died looking into Harry's eyes, Lily's eyes. He gave Harry his memories, the tears. It's so dramatic, so Snape. Look at me. He needed Harry to know. He couldn't die letting Harry think he was a traitor. In those final moments, he stripped away all the masks. He laid it all bare. The boy from Spinner's End, the bullied teenager, the repentant Death Eater, the brave spy. So, was he a hero? I don't know if hero is the right word. He was a bad person who did great things. He was bitter, cruel, and obsessed. But he was also the bravest man Dumbledore ever knew. He sacrificed his entire life for a love that was never returned. He lived in the shadows so Harry could walk in the sun. And that's why we love him, because he's flawed, because he's human, because most of us aren't pure heroes like Harry or pure villains like Voldemort. We're somewhere in between, full of regrets and secrets, just trying to make up for our past mistakes. Snape is the ultimate redemption arc, even if he was a jerk about it until the very end. So here's to the Half-Blood Prince, the man who taught us that you can be the most hated person in the room and still be the one saving everyone's lives. Just maybe wash your hair once in a while, Sev. It wouldn't have killed you. If you dug this deep dive into the greasy, tragic life of Snape, you know what to do. Smash that subscribe button like Snape smashed his potion ingredients. I'm out here analyzing all your favorite characters with zero filter, so don't miss the next one. Later.